build a
I will
CRM
use the
roadmap.
mic only because I have to.
Once you have an agreed strategy, you go into detailed planning as part of rollout phase.
Thank you for joining the session.
You do the actual build and then launch it to the users.
Solutions architect at Manage.
Once you've launched to the users, you want to measure the effectiveness
I'm solution engineer at Manage.
Of the new UI on users' productivity,
London office,
and also other metrics that you might have. So the next phase is optimize. The rest of the talk will cover each of these phases in detail. So let's start with Discover.
Actually, before I do,
so I think my view is that Discover is probably the most important phase out of the three that I mentioned. You start by learning. If you don't understand how Lightning works or what Lightning has to offer, then you won't be able to do gap analysis effectively. We'll talk about gap analysis in a bit. But most importantly, you won't be able to articulate the value proposition of Lightning to your stakeholders. Luckily, there are several resources that you can use to start learning Lightning today. Obviously, the first one is Trailhead. I hope everybody here knows what Trailhead is. I've added here are a few modules as a starter for 10. I would recommend this Trail, Make the Move to Lightning Experience. It's great for beginners and intermediate admins and devs.
Any other competitors.
You can also find more in-depth information on the Help and website. If you want to dig deep into a particular aspect of Lightning feature, you can find that information here. And finally, I would highly recommend that you join the Lightning Now Success community. It's a community. It's a very active and engaging community of users, admins, devs, architects who are either going through the process of migrating to Lightning or have migrated to Lightning.
Won some other awards as well.
You can join them to ask specific questions and get support.
And try to get into
okay, so now you've earned a few badges, you've read the documentation,
general,
you're now a Lightning expert.
Kind of become accustomed
so the next step in Discover is to evaluate the feasibility of the migration and the impact it'll have on your development process and as well as on your users.
Totally changed.
You start by identifying some key stakeholders within your business. So these are the stakeholders who are invested into the CRM roadmap in Salesforce. Once you've identified the key stakeholders, you should then form a steering committee. Now, some of you might have a form of this steering committee. You might call it Center of Excellence or something else. But if you don't have it, even for a small migration project, it's useful to form a steering committee that has a diverse representation from all departments that are affected. You need to, this is obvious, but you need to engage all of the key stakeholders from the beginning, sharing everything that you've learned from the from the learning phase. The committee should ideally be held by an exec sponsor, ideally a C-level exec sponsor. And the primary purpose of this committee is to ensure the success of the migration. You should in parallel also start doing gap analysis. This is where you will find out what you need to do to prepare your org for the migration. And you might also find out that you are probably not ready for the migration because there are a few critical business functionalities that's not available in Lightning. And in that case, you might want to check out the Lightning Experience Roadmap, which is available in Help and Training, and plan your migration accordingly. You don't have to do this analysis manually. There's a great tool called the Lightning Experience Migration Assistant. Lightning Experience Migration Assistant. You can find it under Setup. It's a great tool. It analyzes your org, looks at all of the config and customization that you've made, and creates a PDF readiness report. This readiness report contains advice and recommendation on the things that you should do to prepare your org for migration. There's also another tool called the Lightning Experience Visualforce Check, which will look at all of your Visualforce pages, analyze it thoroughly, and then give you advice on how to, what changes to make to the Visualforce pages so that you can, so that they'll work in Lightning Experience UI. Again, these tools are not perfect. They're not as comprehensive as I'd like. So you should complement them with manual analysis. There's a, if you do one of the Trailhead modules, or you can Google this, there's a Lightning Experience Enablement Pack. that's available. That pack has a bunch of resources that you can use to prepare for Lightning Experience. And one of the resources is a Lightning Experience checklist that you can use to see that you've covered everything for the manual analysis.
So within employee service management,
you should also, the readiness check has a very high-level view on the impact of on App Exchange apps, but you should try and run those App Exchange apps in Lightning UI and see if they actually work. Most of the apps are now or if they're not Lightning ready, they are on their way to be Lightning ready, so it shouldn't be a big problem. But if there is an app that you definitely need and doesn't work, then you need to plan around that. Finally, review the Lightning Experience roadmap. You can find it in Help and Training section. This roadmap will tell you what features are available when.
A lot of services
and again, help you create that project plan.
To the employees that we have to be able to.
Although it's possible to migrate your existing business processes that work very well in classic UI to Lightning UI as is, the migration project is a great opportunity to revisit some of these business processes and understand how they can be done better in Lightning UI. Lightning Experience is more than just a new UI. It's a new way of managing your business and accessing data. So some of the processes, you might want to tweak them or change them so that they exploit the enhanced functionality provided by Lightning. So here are some tips. You can ask the users directly. You can show them what works in Lightning UI and ask them what they would like to change.
Let's say, for example,
you should select some super users, SMEs, especially from your sales and service teams, and do a walkthrough of the new UI and ask them if they'd like to do something different in Lightning UI. And finally, work with the exec sponsor to drive right kind of behaviors top-down. So all of this will probably enable you to deliver a process that's optimized for Lightning Experience.
And then you can relate that back to a
the third and final step in Discover is Align. The purpose of Align is to get a exec sign-off and get to a decision point of yes or no. So to that end, you'll have to present a summary of your findings from the evaluate phase to your steering committee and to your execs. My recommendation is that you shouldn't sugarcoat the facts. You should highlight the challenges and efforts involved in migrating to Lightning. Again, there is an excellent resource that Salesforce has provided that will help you prepare this presentation. And depending on the size of your organization, if it's a large enterprise organization, you will have to do this again and again for different stakeholders to get their buy-in. So I wouldn't underestimate the effort involved in doing this. You may have to provide a high-level cost estimate and then justify the cost by explaining or demonstrating the ROI. Finally, you would need to have a plan to ensure business continuity. Unless your org is a very small professional edition org with just 10 users, all of the migration projects that I've seen from medium to large orgs, they usually end up being on a time scale of a month to 12
So before we are
months.
going to start in the demonstration, I would like to quickly walk through the flow we're going to do within the demo. So what we will do, we will start with an employee who's logging onto the self-service portal. Whenever they want to request something, there's one place they go to. Then we trigger a new employee onboarding. So we are going to log in as a finance manager, and she will have a new team member within her team.
Did get a yes,
so she will trigger a new employee onboarding service.
Where you do the
then we will go into the service agent console.
Planning and build.
Within the service agent console, we will quickly look into ITSM, but as we're mainly focusing on employee service management, we'll just, after ITSM, quickly switch to the service request
the readiness report that you generated in the evaluate phase and use that as a base
request,
and build from there.
Request, go through the process of a new employee onboarding.
In my experience, there are two general approaches for migration, for any migration project, but it applies here more so. There's the big approach. Depending on the size of your org and complexity of your org, big bang approach might be a favorite approach. So in this approach, you take all of the customization, custom apps, and all of your users to move them all to Lightning in one go. It works well for small orgs. It's potentially high impact approach which requires a massive effort, and it will be just your users' workflow. It's always easy to break down a complex task into smaller tasks and then implement them. And to that end, you should consider a phased approach. Most of the organizations that I've worked with, they've been adding custom. They have tons of customizations to their org. They've been using Salesforce for a while. In some cases, they have multiple orgs. So for those orgs and setup, I would recommend the phased approach. So it's ideal for large and complex orgs. There are two ways of doing phased approach. You could either move a business unit to Lightning, one at a time. So for example, you could move your sales team to Lightning or your service team to Lightning, or you could group all of the functionality into a logical group and move that logical group to Lightning one at a time. So it really depends on how your org structure and your internal business process and what impact it will have on business as usual.
So in this
one of the downsides of doing a phased approach is some users, especially whose functions overlap multiple business units, may have to use both UIs at the same time. So they will end up switching between Classic and Lightning.
In this case, we go to the HR department,
then you should
and we're going to trigger a new employee onboarding.
And you will end up with some technical debt. By that, I mean that you will probably have to maintain similar features in both Classic and Lightning. My view is that technical debt in itself is not a bad thing, as long as you track it and manage it, and have planned to address it at some point.
The coloring of the screen.
So that's
with the different fields, and you're going to add that in
Big Bang approach because it's safer and less
disruptive. You will request all the information of the employee, what you need to process.
So here are a few other things that you might want to do. First thing is probably a bit controversial. So, assembling your team. You should obviously, once you've identified what phases, you should assemble your team. Now, Lightning Experience, as you might know,
based on what I'm selecting within the work or within the
framework, which is
process behind
primarily
it will get triggered. So if I select I want a laptop,
more
then
sophisticated, more complex than Visualforce. If
I
you're a
now
Visualforce
submit the
developer,
request.
you could get by knowing
And
a
as
little
an
bit of
employee, I will
JavaScript.
get redirected to my
I'm
request
guilty of this. I
page.
usually just
And on my request page, I will see all my outstanding requests. I will see all my incidents that I've created, and also the history of requests.
So with Visualforce, you could get away by not knowing JavaScript.
So we'll now switch to the
But with
agent
Lightning,
console.
everything, it's primarily a client-side
And on the
framework
agent
as opposed
console,
to a server-side framework like Visualforce.
Let's start with
so
my
even
work
a simple
section.
Lightning component
On the agent console, what you will see is whenever an agent logs onto the portal, you will start with the My Work section, and within My Work section, you will see a combination of all the different items that are assigned to me as an agent. So if I'm an IT agent or an HR agent, for example, doesn't really matter. I will get all my tasks, my requests, my
similarly,
approvals
because
that I
now
need to
you
do.
will be writing a
We'll
lot
get it
of
all in one
Lightning
screen.
apps,
I
Lightning
can work from
components.
there.
I'd recommend you hire JavaScript developers.
So when we're looking at the console, we are leveraging the Service Cloud console here with different screens in there.
Again, identify your pilot group of users, make sure these users are more engaged than the normal users and give you
whenever someone
valuable
reports
feedback.
an incident, that's in most cases related to
can
a
create
problem.
a dedicated group, whether that's a chatter group,
a sample incident I have over here.
whether it's a chatter group
when we're
or
looking at an incident,
it's a
someone
Slack group or
reported an
Skype,
issue,
create a dedicated
and
group
that
where you
might
can
be
manage
related to a
or
problem.
manage and curate
That
discussion
issue is
on
being
Lightning.
caused by that problem. So once that
How do you know
problem
that
is
your
resolved,
migration is successful? Identify
we're
those
going to
points of
resolve
success.
that by having a change on the problem.
So it could be, you want to achieve 10% more lead conversion, 5% more happiness, whatever that metric is. Whether you want to see that employees are spending more time in Salesforce now because they like Lightning UI, what those measures are, identify them. To refine those measures, conduct a survey or poll about what's important to users. So I think that the survey or poll is an underutilized tool, and we should be using that more.
What we also got for the item framework is we got a CMDB embedded.
What's important to them.
So all your assets within your organization.
If you want to improve adoption, you need to have a robust comm strategy. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But make sure you have a comm strategy, or at least thinking about that.
So
and finally, create a project plan that is a target end date, a test plan, and deployment strategy. Now, some of this might seem obvious to most of you, but I've realized working with projects that even if people know what they should be doing, they don't necessarily act on that
insight. Where you can see all the different relationships. Like,
okay, so a few tips on
building tests.
So again, with Lightning, because it's a Lightning Components framework, you won't be building individual pages. You'll be building single page apps, which are different from I guess, Visualforce. Really so a single-page app is a web app where you have a single page, and the users interact with it, and the data and content on that page changes dynamically based on the user interaction. Second tip is, in the migration project, you need to ensure that the data model is not affected. Ideally, you shouldn't change at all, but unless you're changing some core business processes, try and keep the data model changes to a minimum.
Who else is going to be impacted? They can be a little
Even though you can make Visualforce work in Lightning by making a few modifications, my recommendation would be that you try and transform Visualforce pages into Lightning components.
It can also be
the new dashboard engine and dashboard UI is amazing. So I would say that you need to rewrite all of your current dashboard reports and dashboards using the new Lightning dashboard. Finally, you won't be, if you work in a large organization, you won't be doing this in isolation. So there might be other projects that are running in parallel. So make sure you align your build with the broader CRM
What we'll go and do now is we'll go to the service
should be
request
comprehensive.
screen.
You shouldn't just cover the existing business functionality, but all of the new functionality provided by Lightning.
For that new employee onboarding.
Use a full copy sandbox where possible with live-like data. You'd be amazed at the kind of bugs you'll find once you test on live-like data.
Whenever a new request comes in, I don't have to refresh the page. It will actually directly show
Engage
up
key stakeholders and capture feedback. Again,
my
during testing phase, identify some key stakeholders, show them what you're planning to build and deploy.
From here, I can directly go into the request. I already had it open.
And distinguish between bugs and
when we're looking at the request,
again, that's
on top of the screen, you'll see the details of the person who requested the service. So that's in the request service, finance manager,
and add it to the backlog.
I can bring up any additional details of that user profile within this card over here.
Okay, so like I said, good comms and training strategies. So there was a talk before mine by Louise around training and why it's important. You should check that out on YouTube if you haven't seen it.
Service to process the service process.
Comms and training are important if you want to improve adoption. The users need to know, need to be made aware of what's coming, and they need to be trained appropriately.
But what
if you don't do
service
that,
requests are mainly about is the process behind it.
We move
So
users to
all
Lightning,
the service requests
they're
have a
lost,
fixed
they can't
process
figure out
which is
something,
being
how
built
to
from the
make it
service
work.
catalog.
They'll immediately go to that switch to classic option and switch, go back to classic, which kind of defeats the purpose. So make sure you have a good training comms strategy.
Approval has been done.
Obviously, for training, you should leverage Trailhead to train your users. For users who are too busy doing their day job, who don't have time to go through the Trailhead modules, set up lunch and learn sessions for them, and communicate all of these changes either through chat or internal newsletter. And after you've done all of that,
for IT, you can build an automated steps like an API call to automatically create a Salesforce account or create a Workday account.
But are we done?
We don't have to. It can even improve the amount of
we still have to optimize. The journey doesn't end here.
Approve this service now,
after you launch, you should optimize. You could argue that this applies again to all software projects, but it applies here more. So you measure the impact and effectiveness of your rollout and demonstrate the ROI for the migration project.
Complete one of them.
So what things do you measure?
Go to the next step.
You want to create adoption reports and dashboards. Again, you don't have to do this manually.
And I can do
There's a great app called Lightning Adoption Tracker that's available on the App Exchange that you can download, and it has a lot of useful reports and dashboards that you can use to track user adoption.
The automated tasks are also
again, reiterating that conduct user surveys to gather feedback.
Want to end up with showing you guys how easy it is to build out one of
and ask them what can be changed or done better. And finally, the whole purpose of optimize and measure is to report this out back to the exec sponsors to demonstrate the productivity gain, effectiveness, and impact of Lightning.
Approval in there, 2 tasks. I can easily drag and drop them around.
Migration to Lightning may sound daunting initially, especially for large organizations. Successful migration strategies based on cultural and business considerations, not on technology.
Save the process.
From my limited experience in migration, the biggest hurdle is not the actual process of technology, it's the awareness or the knowledge about what the new UI has to offer. Once you go past that hurdle, the rest will follow. So hopefully I've convinced you to not worry about Lightning.
You want HR to be able to be in charge of their own services that they provide and to be able to update and actually change them, not constantly have to go to IT to say, okay, hey, you know, we need this particular change made. It's meant to be quite intuitive, easy to use. You can make your own changes. You can really own your own processes. And that then again makes things a little bit more streamlined instead of having to go back into the backlog of IT where they've got 100 other changes that they need to make necessarily.
Okay, that was a demonstration. So we go back to you on that.
Yeah, so essentially we've only shown you a very quick snapshot of what the product can do. Obviously, depending on what your internal processes are going to be, every business works very differently. But hopefully, you can obviously use the solution to
I'm just repeating the question for the video.
What we really want to do is be able to provide the same level of service, as I said before, that you give to your customers, to your internal employees, and hopefully somebody can help you.
Well, it depends. Sorry, the question is, can one person do the migration on his own?
Platform, product on the Salesforce platform
the
itself.
It depends.
And
if it's
from that perspective, anything that you need, we are native.
Simple implementation,
we have a booth outside,
and you don't have a lot of complex things that you need to migrate. The complexity would come around, not around business process and data model, that might stay the same mostly. But if you have a ton of Visualforce pages that do complex logic, or if you have new processes because it needs to work better in Lightning, then probably you need more
so
than just one person.
One of the things that we did was obviously there are best
Plus you need to think about training and all of the other stuff. So you need all of the support
approach is always going to be, we don't need to rebuild something that other people have done from scratch, right? So we've partnered with discovery tools and monitoring systems that can easily integrate with us. So we are also partnered with Delboomi as the middleware framework, so we can then start building out some automated plugins. They can just kind of basically drag and drop and start configuring instead of having to do your own code and your own integration. So then you can build those discovery tools in, or you can use your own one if you like, if you already have a discovery tool that can then suck in that data, bring it into the CMDB and start populating it. And then you've got your monitoring systems that will obviously constantly monitor the systems. And like a use case that we had for another customer was anytime a critical event happens that the monitoring system picks up, it then sends in a call directly into Salesforce, which creates an event in Salesforce. And because it's a critical event in Salesforce, we're just using standard like Visual Flow and Process Builder to then trigger an incident out of that event. And then of the incident, obviously you have the CI automatically attached to the incident, and then give it a priority, give it an SLA, and then assign it into the queue or assign it to the right person so that it's instantly dealt with a high priority. And aside from the actual integration itself, the rest was all done using configuration within Salesforce. That's something that an admin can manage. So that would be a use case where you have essentially your monitoring system picking something up and then your IT team being able to directly deal with it.
And to add to that, right now we are working on a native integration with SCCM because a lot of organizations have SCCM, so that will be natively within the application.
Sorry, just one more question quickly. Permissioning, security, analytics, is that all standard Salesforce, or have you got your own?
No, absolutely. Standard Salesforce. This is the benefit of being able to be on the platform, right? You can use all the functionality that's already there. I mean, one of the things that we've done for other customers as well is that they are already using Wave Analytics. So you can just plug it in directly. This is also data that sits on Salesforce. You can have reports and dashboards. As part of the solution, we have like 50 reports that come out of the box, and about 6 different dashboards, I think it is. Essentially, so that gives you a starter for 10, right? You don't have to start building out your employee service management reporting or your IT service management reporting. We kind of get you guys started, and you can start tweaking that a little bit.
You got any remote desktop integrations? So, for instance, we use TeamViewer in our customer service engine remote. So just click on a user, go straight to their computer, sort of thing. You got anything like that?
Yeah. So it was actually something that we were talking about last week, where our alliances team is actually working on a partner or beginning a partnership. Safe Harbor with a remote tool supplier, and we want to again start building that in natively so that you can just use that from directly within the platform. It's not there right now, but it is something that we're working on.
And is that one mobile as well? Just
no, both. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time, everybody.